We talk Arizona Cardinals, and this morning, unfortunately, some terrible news in terms of BJ Ojulari, torn ACL out for the season. If you remember who BJ Ojulari is, second-rounder, 22-year-old outside linebacker out of LSU, 41st overall pick. And, Ben, this is a guy that early on didn't get a bunch of reps, but towards the end of the season, you could see that things were starting to click for BJ Ojulari and a lot of high expectations for him in year two.
In a outside linebacker, pass rusher, edge rushing room that I've been in attendance for over the past week at camp, and what I'll just say is like it was already a very bare group to begin with, and now you lose BJ Ojulari, who I wasn't necessarily bullish on him coming in and fixing all the pass rushing issues, but this is a huge blow. This is a guy that we expected to take a huge leap. Now, I wasn't in fantasy land. A lot of Cardinals fans were, he could have 12 sacks. Well, let's just hope he gets 8 of them. Let's just hope he doubles his sack total from last year. And now you have Zaven Collins and Dennis Gardeck, who are now the starting outside linebackers for this team. I love Dennis Gardeck as like my second-string, third-string guy. And Zaven Collins, I mean, it's just not there. He's a bust. He's not a good player. In terms of rushing the passer, that's not what he can do. And so this BJ Ojulari thing is huge, and now it opens up the question of, in a weird sense, and you mentioned this to me yesterday, is this what's finally going to make Monty Austinfort make a move?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Monty Austinfort make a whole lot of moves when guys get injured. You saw a bunch of injuries last year in the defensive line, and they kind of just went next up mentality. But if you're a team, you've improved on the offensive side of the ball. You've addressed the defensive line interior needs in the offseason. And this is a team, Ben, in Arizona Cardinals, still got a lot of cap room. $35 million in cap room. You wonder if that's savings during the season, if more guys get hurt to replace them, or if they're maybe waiting for another season to go and get that free agent move. But you look at a depleted pass rush group, and we talked a couple weeks ago on some of the areas of concern for this Arizona Cardinals team being the pass rush. You lose your all-star in BJ Ojulari, that room becomes slimmer and slimmer. And you're right, we've seen 3 or 4 years of Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins. I think we're all kind of done with that. We want to see what's next. So I ask you, if you're Monty Austinfort, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, and I've seen a bunch of tweets about some possible scenarios, but what are some realistic moves the Arizona Cardinals can make in replacing BJ Ojulari?
Well, you mentioned and you said realistic, which I think is really hard for fans to grasp at times. This is a brutal injury, and it's a huge issue, but let's not make a big problem even worse. A lot of Cardinals fans, a lot of people out there, media are speculating, what about Matthew Judon? He wants a new contract. Matthew Judon is sitting out. Matthew Judon is coming off of what I would call the Chandler Jones year. If people remember correctly, the second to last year with the Arizona Cardinals in Chandler Jones, tore his bicep, or it was his tricep, something on his arm, tore his bicep, and then missed the rest of the season. Then the next season he comes back, was amazing for that first week. I got in a Twitter spat with the guy earlier today.
Against Taylor Lewan and the Titans. He had like 5 sacks.
He had 5 sacks. And someone said to me, why would you not want a Chandler Jones in his last year with his Cardinals? He had 10.5 sacks. Because 5.5 of those sacks came in the final 15 games of the season. He was irrelevant. He wasn't good. And so now you are risking that same issue, except the Cardinals got out of it because they didn't pay Chandler Jones like he wanted to be paid. So now Matthew Judon comes in the equation. That's a guy that wants to get paid, who was elite, but probably knows he's turning the page on the back nine of his career. That's why he wants a deal. He's going to be 32 before the season starts. He was injured last year, and he only had 4 sacks last year. That's an issue. I don't think the Cardinals need to panic and make a bad situation even worse. A guy that I think makes a lot of sense, and I got to give the credit to Kyle Odegaard, who pointed this out this morning, Haason Reddick. That's a guy who had been here before. You had mentioned to me that I didn't even think of, was in the Nick Rawless, Jonathan Gannon system on defense in Philly, was awesome there. No, I don't think he's a supreme pass rusher, and I think he wants $28 million a year. The Cardinals are expected to have $100 million in cap space next season, meaning following this season they'll have it. That makes a lot of sense. He's 28 years old. You're getting him in some of the prime of his career. You're probably going to overpay him, but this is a team that could use him this year and use him next year potentially. I trust Monty Austinfort's idea and ability to come up with a contract, but that is a guy that makes a lot of sense to me if it's not significant draft capital. You have anyone you've thought of?
Yeah, I think Haason Reddick's got to be on top of the list. When you look at the free agency market right now, there's not a lot of options, a lot of older guys. So regardless where you go as an organization for the Arizona Cardinals, it's going to be the 29, 30, 31, 32-year-old type of guys. The pass rush department over the offseason free agency wasn't very it was very slim. Not a lot of pickings for it. I agree with you. I think Haason Reddick's got to be the guy. If you remember, traded from the Eagles to the Jets in the offseason for a 2026 third-round conditional pick. And I think the Jets aren't one of those teams. Yes, we traded for him. We got a third-round pick. We cost a third-round pick for that. But I think they're one of those organizations. If they're dealing with Haason Reddick holding out, I don't think they mind. You know what? We wasted a third-round pick. Maybe we can get a third-round pick from another team. And the Arizona Cardinals, I think it's worth it. You look at this guy in the last 7-8 years he's played in the NFL. Crazy, he's about to be 29 years old. He's consistently played in 16-17 games. Availability's been a thing Haason Reddick's done. And on top of that, he's averaged double-digit sacks in his last 4 seasons, including a 2020 when he was in the Arizona Cardinals, 12.5 sacks. I think it's a perfect fit. I think you can get this guy for third, fourth round pick. The issue with him, though, is him coming in. He's probably going to want a contract. You wonder with the relationship with Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, they can kind of settle that down, and maybe the contract becomes at the end of the season, or if he proves to be a viable, edge rusher, he can earn a contract. I think he's probably got to be the number one situation, number one guy you go and get. It sucks that BJ Ojulari's injury forced this, but it could be, I guess, a positive, a pro, that you needed to address this need, and it happens to be the perfect scenario with Haason Reddick wanting to hold out with the Jets.
Yeah, let me just back you up there, because, you say it could be a positive that someone had an injury, and people can jump on all over that, and, this guy's wishing for injury. No, you're being a fanboy. What you mean is this pass rushing room that I've seen with my own 2 eyes, and I've talked with other people on the sidelines, it doesn't look good. It wasn't good before, even with BJ Ojulari was there. This could force Monty Ossenfort to go out of his comfort zone to go get a guy he wants, which could be a net positive at the end of the day. Because honestly, I'd rather have Haason Reddick over a healthy BJ Ojulari, who was better last year towards the end of the season. But again, I wasn't bullish that he was going to have a 9.5 sack year. I thought that was fantasy land. But not to mention as well, Monty Ossenfort has a clear guy he wants. We saw it with Bilal Nichols. We saw it with Mac Wilson. We saw it with everyone that he picked up. Sean Murphy-Bunting. They have to be healthy, and they got to play a lot of games. Now, listen, when in free agency, people were asking for the craziest of go get Chris Jones. Like, guys, the Cardinals aren't that close to winning a Super Bowl. Now, they're close to competing for a playoff spot this year, but they're not winning a Super Bowl or making a conference championship game this year. Let's not go get Matthew Judon or a Chris Jones and waste all of our money for something that's going to happen this year that isn't going to result in a bunch of playoff wins. Haason Reddick fits the mold. He's never missed a game, which I didn't even realize until I looked at his stats.
Yeah,
He's
incredible.
never missed a game. And this is a guy that's over the last couple of seasons, 12.5 sacks, 11 sacks, 16 sacks, 11 sacks. Can he get 10? Which is a monstrous thing for this Cardinals pass rush. Like, people don't understand. I've seen the secondary group. I'm actually a lot higher on them now after just watching them. I think the secondary's not going to be elite, but it's going to be good, like above average. It's going to quickly turn into garbage if the pass rush isn't there, because you could add the whole Legion of Boom back there. If they didn't have Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett rushing the passer in their prime, it was not going to work out. So that's the issue with the Cardinals is now that the pass rush is even worse potentially, that could make the rest of the defense look just horrible. And that's an issue that the Cardinals are facing right now.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this, too, for people out there saying, they drafted Darius Robinson in the back of the first round. Why not put him outside? I think the one thing that Monty Ossenfort and JG do best is they grab players in certain situations, in certain positions that they're great at, and they don't move them. What do we see with Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim? It was always, Zaven Collins, you're accelerating at the outside position, at the outside linebacker's position. We're going to try you in the inside linebacker for 2 to 3 years and see how you do. It didn't work. Isaiah Simmons, the same situation. We've seen you rush the passer at Clemson. We're going to try you at safety. We're going to try you at all different situations and positions and not really solidify one position. You've been there at camp. In our next segment, we'll talk about Arizona Cardinals camp and what you've seen there. The clips I've seen from Darius Robinson, interior on the defensive line, hand in the dart, that's where he's meant to be, is rush the passer and wreak havoc in pressuring the run and stopping the run. And he's blown away some of those interior defensive linemen, which I've been impressed by. You got to keep him here with Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones. That defensive line room looks a lot deeper with Darius Robinson. I just don't want fans to be like, oh, let's just move him outside out of a position that's not natural to him and put him in the edge rusher position, which he can play. You could have packages for him, but that can't be his primary position.
It's a really good point. You don't want to move people out of positions that they're comfortable with playing unless you absolutely have to. And right now, they don't absolutely have to. And also, it's a rookie. Let's not move players around. Let's figure that out. And, like, Darius Robinson, we'll get to it in just a second, but just briefly, he's been good at camp. Now, he has not been elite. He's been good. And that's all you can ask for with a rookie. And even at some points, better than some rookies on the team that we thought were going to be good as well, like a Trey Benson who hasn't looked amazing yet. Like, those are the type of things that I would agree with. It's don't just move people just to move people.